morning, everyone. Welcome to my podcast. This podcast is primarily about my knitting projects and my horsemanship journey with my two horses, Odin and Bragi the Mustangs, hence the name of my podcast, The Knitting Equestrian Nomad. One of the things I hope to talk about today is just a little bit more about my horsemanship journey before I got both Odin and Bragi. And I did mention that they are both Mustangs. I adopted them from the Bureau of Land Management Wild Horse Adoption Program, and I will have a link to that in my show notes. I also talk about cooking and gardening, so those are the other things I do outside of my full-time job. You are a returning listener. Thank you for listening or watching, and welcome back. And if you are a new viewer, my name is Corrina, and I live in the northwest corner of the United States, the Pacific Northwest, with my partner and our two kitties and the two horses that I mentioned. I am recording on Sunday, November 27th, 2022. It is cloudy out, which is normal for this time of year. Most time, I guess I could say that it would be raining, but it's not right now, which is nice, although everything is damp from previous rains. It is the weekend after Thanksgiving, so I've had, this is my fourth day off, which has been really nice. Most of us go back to work tomorrow, so yeah, that's kind of the way that this week is ending and the next one is beginning. Normally the way I start this is that I offer an old finished object. I didn't bring one today, although I could point out this Afghan here that's on the back of my chair. My mom made this for me. It's knitted. I think, actually it's crocheted. It's crocheted in a V pattern, and it's made out of acrylic yarn. It feels like probably like a red heart variegated yarn, and I've had this for, I'm guessing, at least 40 years. So it has held up very nicely and is nice and warm. It's also a nice, kind of back to this wooden rocking chair. My new finished object. So this is what I'm wearing, and this is the Lola top by Kutovakika. So she is a Finnish knitwear designer. So let me show you. This is a summer top, and this is out of repurposed yarn. So can't really show you the back too well, but yeah, and there's a little bit of a gappy here. I could probably fix that if I wanted to, by just adding another row and kind of taking in those stitches there. That is how ultimately I got a good fit, is that I added this light colored row and kind of took it in a little bit around the top, because I had a pretty big gap in the back, and now it just fits really nicely. So I could certainly do that on the sleeves or the armholes if I chose to, and I may. There are at least a million ends to weave in, so you can see here. So a lot of these I kind of knitted, weaved in as I went on the kind of the Stephen West method, weave in Stephen. So I can probably just snip these off. This one I'll just tuck back on the inside, but I may take a darning needle. There's plenty of yarn, so I may just do that over time. Again, this is a summer top, so I won't be wearing it really with any regularity anytime soon. One thing I did, the pattern, as you can see, is pink, and then this light colored. I ran out of the pink, so the ribbing, the bottom ribbing, is in this light colored, which is fine. It's one of those design features that you do on purpose. So I still have plenty of the this light colored yarn left. So what I'm going to do with this, I suppose since it's cotton, I could make washcloths out of it. So I may do that. Yeah, so I'm pretty happy with this project. So the question is, now that that's off my needles, what is going on my needles? Well, I will get to that here in a moment, but let me show you what my works in progress are. So I was hoping to have 2 finished objects for you today, but I am working on the toe of the second sock. This is an almondine sock from, it's a Legacy Knits Halloween colorway yarn, fingering weight yarn. Can't remember if this is their steel toes variety or not, but anyway, the colorway is called Smell My Feet. So really like it. These are, since the pattern's kind of a lace, again, this is an almondine pattern. That's, did I write that in my show notes where that was? I didn't. The pattern comes from an Anne Budd book called Sock Knitting Masterclass or something like that. So lots of patterns in there that I hope to try. And these were my second pair of Sockoween socks. The Sockoween was hosted by the Bakery Bears. So anyway, I should probably have those finished today, I would imagine. So what else did I cast on? I can't remember if I showed this or not, or if it was still on my wish list. The Lovenote sweater by Tin Can Knits. This was a very popular pattern, I don't know, a year ago, maybe? Over the summer? I'm not sure, but I'm using, so I'm just this far, it's top down. Actually, the pattern calls for a provisional cast on up kind of near the top, and then you can custom knit your, it's not a cuff, the collar. The ribbing around the collar. I just decided to not bother with a provisional cast on, and I just cast on what the finished number of ribbing for the collar would be, and then just work down. It wasn't hard at all, so hopefully it's nothing I regret. So what I'm doing is this is the main color of yarn. This is a hand-dyed yarn from Skein and Tipple on Whidbey Island. And this is the mohair. I was a little bit surprised, so that might be showing more true to color. There's a lot of like light green with the streaks of kind of rust. What surprised me about this is just how much influence the mohair has on the color. There is some pooling, which I don't love. But I don't hate it either. So, you know, it's just going to be what it is. I'm not that concerned about it. I'm not that picky, quite honestly. So, I'm not going to worry about it. But here's the mohair skein. This is what it looks like in the skein. This is 72% kid mohair and 28% silk. It just refers to color number 5. It doesn't have, the colorway doesn't have a name. And then here's the main fingering weight. That is, oh, the sun's coming in, so it might be a little bright in here. So yeah, this is or fine, 100% fine organic merino. It's fingering weight, and this is colorway number 20. So again, Skein and Tipple on Whidbey Island. I bought this yarn on a camping trip. I went with a friend last summer, and Skein and Tipple is kind of a neat concept because it's a yarn store with a cocktail bar. What could go wrong there? And you have to walk through the yarn store before you get to the cocktail bar, so it's kind of fun. Pardon me if I squint. Sip of tea. I'm drinking a mushroom tea from Traditional Medicinals Tea. It's just a non-caffeinated tea that I usually like to have after I have my morning black tea. Okay, so that, oh, I have one more thing on the needles, and this is kind of a long time coming. I've been talking about this for a while. This I also bought the yarn on that same camping trip. This is from Anacortes Fidalgo Knits. So I started the owl cowl. The owl cowl is a free pattern by Kay Jones of the Bakery Bears. So I've just barely started the ribbing. It is, I'll show you the pattern. It's just kind of neat. I used 6 minis, so this is what it is, what it looks like. So I bought 6 minis, and I haven't wound those up. I wind all my yarn by hand, so they're still in their little unicorn tails. So these are the minis that I got. Kind of heavy on the green and the kind of coral colors. You can see those, and to go with this. So yeah, I think that's gonna be really pretty. I love to wear cowls. This is fingering weight, so a little kind of on the lighter side, but I think it'll be good. This is 50% fine alpaca and 50% wool. It is, oh, I wonder if this is more of a DK weight. Seems like the gauge is 23 to 26 stitches per 4 inches. So yeah, this could be more, or maybe a sport. Colorway is Bonfire. And again, this is Fidalgo Artisan Clothing. So yeah, so that's fun. I just started that last night. So those are my whips. So the Sockoween socks, the Lovenote sweater, and the owl cowl. I have another segment called Ripped Out to Start Over. So the long saga of ghost horses. You might remember if you watched my last episode or two, we had a power outage, and I felt like I could do the pattern of ghost horses because I was just doing the finished the yoke. Well, I finished the yoke for the second time because I had to rip back and make it bigger. I thought it was big enough, and then I was knitting the body, and I was able to do the body was just a repeat color work. It was a pretty simple pattern. I could do that when we had a power outage and I didn't have a lot of light. But I finished it while we were at Ocean Shores not last weekend, the weekend before, and it was still too small. So I will rip that out. I have a new plan for it. I think I'm going to use a DK weight yarn, probably use bigger needles, and then just knit the yoke and then knit the body in just like plain stockinette. That's my plan. I think it'll be less, I hate to use the word hurtful, but it feels kind of hurtful now. I've just really struggled with this pattern. This is probably the 4th time I've at least knitted the yoke. So that one's having a big time out right now. I have plenty of other projects that I'm excited about, so it's okay that it does that. So the next thing I'm going to cast on after I finish the Sockoween socks, it's another pair of socks. It's a free pattern by Amy Snell. I think this came from Knit Picks. It is Knit Picks. So it's these socks. These are toe up. I have never knit toe up before. I know how to do the Judy's Magic cast on, so you kind of end up with a closed toe, so to speak, from the get-go, and then knit up, but I've never knit the gusset and heel flap in reverse, so that ought to be interesting. There's also, I don't know if you can see it from the photo, but there's a pattern on the top of the foot, and then you go into color work. So this is going to probably require some concentration. The recommended yarn is Stroll, Knit Pick Stroll. I don't have any of that, at least not for this project, but what I do have is some West Yorkshire Spinners yarn in these colors. So this will be the bottom with the pattern, and this will be the color work, the main color and the color work part of the cuff. So this yarn is blue raspberry. Although it's pretty teal and even on the greenish side of teal. And this color is marshmallow. So yeah, blue raspberry and marshmallow. So this is fingering weight. Contains 35% of blueface luster. I think that's how you pronounce it. I would pronounce it Leicester, Leicester, or something like that, probably inappropriately, because those of us who live on the Pacific Northwest pronounce all the vowels in all the syllables, but that may not be the correct way. So, oh, these are 3.25 millimeter needles. Huh, interesting. So, oh, I wonder if this is, Okay, well, I'm going to give it a go and see what happens. So I'm going to knit with the needles that it calls for, which are, I think, the 2.2 1/4 and 2.5 millimeter needles, which typical sock. I have knit socks with that size needle before with the same type of yarn, just different colors with the West Yorkshire Spinners yarn. So it should be fine. So I just need to make sure I knit the right size. This is supposed to have a certain amount of negative ease, so that gives me a certain amount of comfort as well. So the other thing that's coming up is an cowl with the Bakery Bears. So I think the cast on date is December 2nd, perhaps. So I'm looking forward to that. I have the yarn and the needles picked out. I have no idea what the project is. I just picked out some worsted weight yarn that I had in my stash in 3 colors, and then the needles that were suggested by Kay Jones. So looking forward to that. Future project plans. So part of the reason why I did this was just to kind of keep myself on track. And then if there's any patterns that you're interested in, I don't have it linked in my show notes. I do have the name and the designer on there. So hopefully you'd be able to find it on Ravelry, or in the case of the first one that I have listed, Westland Colorwork Sweater, is by Barocco using the Arno yarn. So hopefully you'd be able to find that on the website. I think that was a free pattern. A lot of the Barocco sweaters I knit are free patterns. So that one is going to be, it's a color work with a cowl, or yoke, sorry, a yoke that is, the main color of the sweater is going to be black, and then the contrast color is kind of a green, like a forest green. So that's going to be a nice winter sweater. So I'll start that after I finish either the Lovenote or the cowl, either one. Crossvine is a cabled sweater, also by Barocco. That was a free pattern that they had advertised in their newsletter. And that one is going to be in kind of a darkish teal color. So that was a cabled sweater. It's kind of a, might be Aran weight or yarn. So it seemed like it was a little bit bigger than worsted yarn. The next one on my list is the Sophia Loren Riverside Pullover. It's a colorwork sweater with, I think, 4 colors. The main color that I'm using, first of all, the design is by Kathleen Lawton Trask and Becky Wolf. Probably a free pattern that I found on Ravelry is my guess. I've had that pattern for a long time, and I've been kind of staring at it for a long time. The main color I'm going to use is a worsted kind of chocolate brown that is from a local farm here, a local sheep farm. They raise sheep for sheep milk cheese, and also for meat. So I got some of her yarn. And then my contrast colors are red and gray. I feel like there should be another color in there. Probably like a white or a cream color is going to be in there. So I'm looking forward to that. Number 4 is the Cryptid Cowl by Pacific Knit Company. I happen to have that one right up here. I have kind of the yarn picked out. This is a paid-for pattern. I got it on a sale for, I think it must have been Rhinebeck weekend or something like that. So the one, this one, little Sasquatch man, that's the one I'm going to use. I think this calls for 4 colors, no, 5 colors, if I remember right. Yeah, it's DK 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so I have 4, so I need a couple other colors. So these are some DK yarns I bought for a shawl originally, and then used a different yarn. So I'm thinking maybe kind of a black, and then I was kind of thinking of like a blue or like a blue-gray. Or something like that. So I need to go back to, where did I get this yarn? I might have gotten this yarn from Knit Picks, so I can probably go back and look there. Although I admit, because it was Black Friday, I bought a lot of yarn this weekend. So I'll talk about that in acquisitions. Let me see. So that was the Cryptid Cowl. That's by Pacific Knit Company. I am also on my list as a cardigan. It's a free pattern by Kim Hargreaves. So it's gray. It's a button down with 2 pockets. So it's kind of I got the yarn from Knit Picks, and it's I think it's the Cotton yarn, and just kind of a flat gray color. So it'll be a top that or a cardigan I can wear as a jacket, which I do most of the year here. And then I also have yarn for Stephen West Exploration Station shawl. Very curious about brioche. I have not knit brioche before, so that's the reason why I bought that. And I'm looking forward to, and I've never knit anything by Stephen West, but I've been watching his videos lately, and I really like the way he explains things, and I also like the way he allows for mistakes, because I make a lot of mistakes, and they just become part of the design. And then the other one, I also have a Stephen West. I have yarn for a Stephen West Pierre pullover. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one as well. It's kind of a neat pattern. And the colors are kind of go from dark and they kind of fade upward. So I kind of like that. And then I bought, then I have 3 sweaters planned from this Vintage Shetland Project book that I bought, I think it was last year. So yeah, I have 3 sweaters in this one that I have planned. So the Ganson is one I just purchased yarn for from Brooklyn Tweed. So let's see if I can do this without, there we go. That's a good idea. So Brooklyn Tweed, and I'm talking about acquisitions now, also Brooklyn Tweed had, they were offering a pay, full price, pay 10% off, or pay 20% off, I think, or maybe it was 25. And they would put a portion of the proceeds to an LGBT choir in Portland, Oregon. So I thought and it's called a Part Together community. And I thought it was a good cause. So I decided to make a big yarn purchase from them, and I took one of the percentages off because the amount of yarn I bought was pretty expensive. So I thought that would be an adequate donation for that cause. So pretty happy about that. I just happened to have, using as a bookmark, the Pierre pullover pattern. So this is what it looks like. This is an old pattern. It's been corrected since, so hopefully I'm not giving anything away, but I do like kind of that color combination, although I picked a different color combination. I probably put purple in it because I'm a big fan of purple. I have a couple other sweaters in mind. The Mary Ann, which is this sweater right here. This is out of the vintage, Shetland Vintage Project book. I have yarn for that, I think. I wrote it down. Oh, this is a lace weight, and I have some alpaca lace weight that I'm going to use for that. So, and it's a kind of a chocolate brown, and I have one skein of black, so I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do that, but we'll see. Or I have to go back to the store, which is not terrible. And then my bookmark fell out for my other sweater that I had in mind, but what I was going to use for this sweater is the Cascade 220 fingering weight yarn from that I'm gonna, when I frog my ghost horses, the light colored yarn, that's what I'm gonna use. So, well, darn it. I wish I would have, and I'll probably end up having to buy more yarn for that. So I talked about the Marianne, that was one. I can't remember what the other one was. Maybe it was Margaret. Well, I'm not going to look too long, but it's kind of bums me out that I didn't write it down on my bookmark, because that is silly. Well, I know it's not Margaret because Margaret is color work. Yeah. So I'll have to figure out that later, but it's kind of nice to know that I have yarn for two of those. So new acquisitions, I did end up buying more yarn from Knit Picks for the Exploration Station Stephen West shawl, because I had probably enough, but maybe not quite. And I was recently watching some Stephen West videos where he was talking about, just buy extra, because then you can build your stash, and then you can use these yarns for these stash down projects. And he had this whole video series, it's paid for series about organizing your stash and using your stash for certain projects. Plus you got 2 patterns with that, so kind of excited about that. So that is all I have for knitting. I have been thinking a lot about my knitting stash, but I guess after I watched those Stephen West videos, I really don't have enough stash to worry about stash down projects yet. So I guess I can just continue buying yarn at will. Gardening. So we've had some frost, and so I cleaned out snipped all the dahlias and the tomatoes, and kind of cleaned out those garden beds, and planted fava beans, because you can plant fava beans at this time of year, and hopefully they'll come up in the spring. They're one of the first things that comes up in the spring. They are a legume, so they are good for the soil. They are nitrogen fixing, which means that the plant takes nitrogen from the atmosphere and brings it back to the soil. So legumes are really good to plant. And plus I like fava beans. They're just a really nice springtime vegetable. And I also started a German style mound garden, and this is called Hugelkultur. So I put a link in my show notes. Oh, here comes the sun again. Hello. So I put that in my show notes because we have these kind of strange, we have a lot of trees on our property, and then as they fall down, people who, I'm probably really washed out now because the sun. But there's all these kind of strange mounds where these like piles of wood and debris have been set up, which is actually perfect for these Hugelkultur gardens. So that's what I'm doing. I'm putting like old garden vegetation on top of that to just kind of even out the mound and maybe flatten it out a little bit. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to plant there yet, but it's a really sunny spot, so I'm kind of thinking maybe green beans if I can keep the bunnies out of it. So we'll see. We have a lot of bunnies, so not sure. Cooking projects. So we had Thanksgiving. Randy did the turkey. I peeled all the potatoes and made the stuffing. Yeah, so that was kind of our contribution to Thanksgiving. We had it at our house, and we had my dad and his wife, and then Randy's sister and her husband and daughter and the daughter's boyfriend. So it was a good time. We had a really nice time. They brought pies and green bean casserole and rolls. So yeah, it was really nice. And then did the cleanup, and yeah, we provided the wine too, so, and beer. So it was a really nice day. It was kind of a busy day. You know, the turkey we were planning on eating at 1, so the turkey had to go in at 8 a.m. and there's some prep that has to go on for that. Oh, we also, made the cranberry sauce too. So that was Thanksgiving, and the next day, I think we didn't do much. I mean, it was just kind of like post-Thanksgiving tiredness, unambition. So yeah, I did a lot of knitting. But I think we had a green salad with turkey on top of it Randy had smoked a turkey breast, which turned out really yummy, and that was very tasty on top of the salad. Yesterday we went Christmas tree shopping to the local Christmas tree farms, and we found one that fit our budget in the sense of how much cash that I just happened to have in my wallet. So the tree, Randy had said something like, well, I really lowered my standards for that one. So, okay, well, it's a tree, and it's pretty straight, and it's got a full bottom, and, nice shape to it. So, yeah, so we got that put up yesterday, and we have to put a kind of a protective grate around it. It's like a fireplace grate that we put around it, and then we put foil on the top to keep the cats out. So the tree's a little fat at the bottom, so Randy has to make some spacers so that so the bottom of the tree isn't squished, but it could still keep the cats out. And then we put foil around the top so they won't jump on top of it. So our house has some interesting random decorative foil features to keep the cats off of, like, for instance, the wood stove mantle, because from the wood stove mantle, one of the cats can get up into our second story windowsill, which gives me heart murmur. So yeah, we also have foil on top of our dresser so they won't knock things off the dresser in the middle of the night when we're trying to sleep, or during the day when we're gone. So cats, they bring us a lot of joy, but they also make us think too. So that's cooking and gardening. Horses and life stuff. So I'm still, it's this time of year it's pretty tough to really do anything major with them because of the footing gets challenging, and when I'm doing something with the horses, I want to give them confidence. You know, so I don't want to ask them to do something that they don't know how to do and then have it become worse because they're slipping and sliding, which is scary to them, scary for anyone. So I just work on a lot of really simple things, just like following me and stopping when I stop, and you know, giving me my space, especially when I ask for it. So you know, just working on solidifying their manners and connection with them. So you know, I spend just a few minutes a day doing that, and I think it really changes a relationship when I do ask for something more difficult. So it's just kind of a nice time to give everyone some time off. So, you know, I hope to continue to work with Bragi on trailer loading, but again, I don't want him to be nervous about doing that and then slipping in the mud, you know, when he gets out. So, wow, the sun is really persistent today, which is, you know, that's okay. It's okay. November sun is great. And I was going to talk a little bit about the equestrian nomad. I think this is part 6. Beege went to a training barn, and I put him in full-time training, but these really weird kind of lameness issues kept popping up, and like he would get really, you know, we'd try to ride him or work with him and he'd just be wild. And it wasn't fun to work with, and it wasn't fun to be in a barn with a bunch of other people who are trying to do things with their horses. And, you know, I have this, you know, 1,500-pound kite on the end of a line. And so, you know, there was multiple vet visits and trying to figure out what his issue was so that we could correct it for him. So, he wouldn't be in pain, and he didn't have to feel that stress and anxiety about working. Because he really wanted to work. He wanted a project, but it hurt. So you could really kind of tell he was conflicted about this. And a lot of it was his behavior. It's like, I want to, but oh my God, I'm just, you know, I'm scared, I'm in pain. And so ultimately what happened is we basically did, my trainer and I did a kind of a ground up. So from his feet up through his hocks, and we were you know, the plan was to go all the way through his back and neck, wondering if he had kissing spine because he was a thoroughbred, and that is not uncommon with thoroughbreds, is that the spinal processes along their, you know, if you can picture their back kind of curves like this and goes over the rump, their spinal processes, you know, which are normally kind of parallel to each other along their spine, well, they kind of tip, when they have kissing spine, they touch. So it's, you know, and it's very painful. There are ways to correct it sometimes, sometimes just through kind of physical therapy and exercise. Sometimes it requires surgery. So Beege at the time was, I don't know, 13 or 14, so, you know, a good age for a horse, so it's kind of willing to do what it was going to take. But what we found out was that the issue was arthritis in his fetlocks. So that's kind of the ankle above the hoof. And there just wasn't really anything that we could do with any consistency that would make it better. I think, you know, there was injections, but there's a time limit on those. And both my trainer and I decided it just wasn't worth it. So I made the painful decision of retiring him, and I moved him from the training barn to a friend of mine. She wasn't a friend at the time, I just met her, but she had a place, pasture board that was very reasonably priced, and her horse needed a companion, so this was perfect for him. So this was all in about 2017. So he might have been 14 at the time, because I think he was born in 2003. Yeah, so, and she had a riding arena, so I could go out there and do stuff with him, you know, in the arena, you know, groundwork stuff, and just practice my groundwork skills. So I moved him there, and And that was really okay with him. It was okay with him until the lady who owned the farm, who became my friend, her name's Cheryl, would take her horse on a ride, and then my horse would just freak out and run around. And it was kind of painful to watch, because it's like, hey dude, you're lame, remember? No, not when he was afraid. His buddy was gone. He was terrified of being by himself. So, and I think that confidence part goes with not having the ability to feel like you can take care of yourself. I mean, horses have evolved over the last 50 to 56 million years. So there's this definite evolutionary knowledge, if you will, that the weak horse is going to become dinner for the next predators. And I think Beege was acutely aware of that he could potentially become dinner, even though realistically we don't have those kind of predators. We don't have saber-toothed tigers here. We have mountain lions and wolves. We don't have wolves, sorry. We have coyotes. But, again, he's a 1,500-pound horse. I mean, he would really have to be in a weakened state to be victim to a mountain lion. So, but in his mind, he was that horse. He was this weak, incompetent horse, which is far from the truth. He was just such a handsome fellow. He's gone now, and I'll get to that eventually. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of describe his life. I swear that horse taught me more about horsemanship than any other horse I've ever had. He was such a challenge to me. And there were many people who wouldn't have put up with him, for lack of a better phrase, because he was so difficult. But I knew I was learning from him, and I also felt obligated to give him a landing spot for the rest of his life. So he only lived till he was 17, and that was after we moved to this location here where we are now. And I'll talk more in detail about that. I really kind of want to talk more about getting Odin. So I got Odin in 2018. So I mean, knowing that Beege was retired, I really wanted to ride, and I also really wanted a Mustang. So in the fall of 2017, some friends and I went to the Mustang makeover that was held over in Monroe, over here, and saw some really nice horses. And the Mustang makeover is a situation where these trainers, these approved trainers, approved by the Bureau of Land Management, they pick up a horse from the corrals in Burns, Oregon, which are where the recently gathered horses stay until they are adopted out. And the Mustang Makeover is a program created by the Mustang Heritage Foundation to get these Mustangs into homes with a minimal amount of training. So these horses get 100 days of training. And some of them really do amazing things of what they can do in 100 days. So after that Mustang makeover in Monroe, I decided that the next year I was going to get one. And so I worked it out with my trainer. He would have a landing spot, he or she. Wasn't sold on either gender. So the next July is when the next Mustang makeover was, and it happened to be in Eastern Washington rather than Western Washington, and it was the first time I think it was held in Eastern Washington. But in advance you can get a catalog to see who's available and which ones are the riding horses and which ones are the youth, the younger horses that are handled by the youth. So this is. It's called Mustang Yearling Washington Youth Program. And there is an adult section, and those horses are generally under saddle. But there was only four adults competing with four horses that had been started under saddle, and Odin was one of them. He's a lovely gray, gorgeous Mustang. His name was Thor. And wasn't out of my budget. So, so yeah, he came home with my dear friend who has a horse trailer and a truck, and she wanted to go with me. And she goes, "Oh, I'll bring my horse trailer." I was like, "Okay, I guess we're doing this." So yeah, that's how I got Odin, and Odin went to my trainer's barn, and yeah, he's just a really handsome fellow, and he's my primary riding horse. So I'll talk more about that next time. I should stop babbling on here because we're at 45 minutes. I just want to talk about the closing bits a little bit at the end of this video, or some beach photos from our trip to Ocean Shores, and then some autumn mountain photos. We went up to the gate before Washington Pass last weekend and did a little skiing on the side of the road on the closed highway. So that was fun, and it was a beautiful fall day. So I have some great pictures up north of Desolation Peak, which is of Jack Kerouac fame, and also Horsemanship Mountain. So yeah, that was yeah, really nice. So that'll be at the end of this video, and then also in my show notes I have the resources for my horsemanship and knitting and gardening, whether it's YouTube or a blog or a podcast. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend, and have a good week. Until next time, bye.